What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. I am so grateful that you guys are joining me today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to introduce you to an amazing man who is not only going to teach you some amazing lessons and skills, but it's just going to leave you feeling hopeful and excited and pumped up for your life. So I'm really grateful for this guest to come on to the show. Everyone, I invite you, as you're listening to this episode today, make sure you're thinking of someone that you know is going to be blessed from the lessons taught by my phenomenal guest today, and make sure to share the episode with them, not only so you can let them know that you care, but you can help spread the awareness of destigmatizing mental health. And everyone, make sure to like and subscribe, of course, to the podcast on whatever platform you choose to listen on, so we can continue to grow the tribe. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my amazing guest. So my guest is a captivating entrepreneur who has an expertise in the law of assumption and the teachings of Neville Goddard. He has triumphed over adversity, rising from a lower middle-class background to launch his own radio station, and ultimately uses so much to find his own life. He is the founder and CEO of Imaginarium LLC, empowering visionaries to fulfill their desires. He's committed to the excellence and genuine love for people, combined with an unwavering belief in their potential. He enjoys nature, farming, and cherishing moments with his loved ones. And he's an avid reader with a thirst for knowledge. So without further ado, we have Jerry on the show. Jerry, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing good, Chase. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Dude, I am excited that you're here, man. So you are in Hawaii now, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. We've been here. We're just starting our fourth year here in Hawaii. So,
Dude, I am
um,
so jealous. So jealous. So what island are
I
you
get that
on?
a lot.
I don't doubt it.
Big Island.
The Big Island?
Big
Cool, dude.
Island. hmm
That is
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
So
It's really awesome out here. Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine the weather is always phenomenal. My wife and I, we actually went on our honeymoon to Oahu, and so I have the weather app on my phone, and I always have Oahu pulled up. So when it's like negative 20 degrees here in Utah, I can just grumble about Hawaii.
Well, come and visit. Come and visit. You're more than welcome. We have a couple spare bedrooms and
Oh, there. Okay. If I tell my wife that, we'll be buying plane tickets. So well, thank you, Jerry. I
cool.
appreciate it. So,
Yeah,
bro,
no problem.
give us some cookie cutter answers as to who you are and what you do, so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Oh man. Well, so this is a wellness podcast, right? So I'll just speak to that first. I am, like you said, I'm an imagination coach. Some people would say manifestation coach, but I specifically work with people who who have a vision for their life, but don't necessarily know how to go after it, go and achieve it, and all that stuff. And I help simplify the manifestation process for folks so they can get out of the whole grind set mindset and get in more in the flow set mindset, if you will. And really just how the way a person imagines themselves determines the results in their life. And so if you change what you're imagining about yourself and about your world, your relationships and all that good stuff, everything, and I mean everything, shifts to match that state of consciousness. So that's what I help people with. Other ways I help out with wellness is obviously you talked about farming. I live on a mamaki tea farm and I help grow these, beautiful native Hawaiian plants that are great for teas, good mixtures and good for heart health and other health benefits as well. And I just love doing that. But I think the thing that I love the most is really just helping people. I love people. I love seeing the spark go off in their eye, like that aha moment. And anything I can do to help people find those moments it just lights me up.
Dude, I agree with you, man. There's nothing better than seeing people do better and be better. So
hmm
I love that you talk about you pursue your dreams and you're living your best self. And I know we're going to talk about that a whole lot more. And we were touching on it briefly before we started filming. So how did the love for tea farming foster? Like what's kind of that story?
Okay, so I didn't have a love for tea farming before we moved here, and it took a little bit of time. So man, it depends where you want it, the story, how you want the story to go. But I manifested our move here to Hawaii. When we moved here, We came here sight unseen. We didn't know anybody. We didn't know where we were going to live. In fact, on in the process of moving here, my wife ended up losing her job even, and so we were just, you know, we were just we were just following the path, as if you will, and we ended up finding ourselves here on this farm. It's just it's a crazy beautiful story, and it basically we found it just as much as it found us, and we didn't even think we were going to become necessarily farmers here. We were just renting, and then we're like, hey, we can help. This is awesome. It's like Korean natural farming. There's all these new things that we were learning about, and we just dove right into it. Our intention when we moved here to Hawaii was to homestead, just a nice simple homesteading thing, and it ended up turning out we ended up moving to the largest mamaki tea farm in the world, and we're learning our farming skills that way. We're learning beverage sales and, like, beverage industry and all that type of stuff. And so, like, all these things that beforehand wasn't even a blip on our radar, and now it's like good chunk of what I do with my life. So
Dude,
yeah.
that's so cool. So do you feel like in the realm of imagination that you work with,
Mhm.
do you feel like it typically, like, you imagine that you're gonna live in Hawaii and you're gonna homestead, and then it just kind of naturally progresses to what it's supposed to be? Or do you feel like the imagination that you work on is it typically plays out the exact way you see it in your imagination?
So so that's a great question, actually, Chase. All I actually did was imagine being home. I didn't imagine Hawaii. I didn't imagine what I was going to be doing. I literally sat in my I would wake up in the morning, in the middle of the afternoon, and right before going to bed, and I would just imagine that I was home. I would just I would feel like I was home. I would, feel that knowing energy that is home. And then eventually a vision came, and I stopped the meditation. And about a month after the vision, I woke up in the middle of the night at 3:30 in the morning, thinking that I lived in Hawaii. Shook it off. I was like, no, this is cold ass Chicago. What am I thinking? And I checked my phone to see what time it is. And it's 3:30. And then there's a notification on my phone that says one-way tickets to Honolulu for $99. And I just assumed that was, I was like, oh, well, I guess we're moving to Hawaii. And I bought the tickets within 15 minutes. I told my wife later that day, we're moving to Hawaii in 6 weeks. And like I said before, we didn't, it's so interesting. This is what I work on with people. Like most people set out a plan, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm in business, I have plans and things like that, but most people think it's the plans that do the work, when in fact it's actually what we are holding on to within ourselves that actually causes us to do things like make plans or not make plans, or move this way, move that way, and this and the other. We think that what we're doing is or we think that the way the world is showing up is because of the way the world is showing up, when in fact it's actually our reactions and our responses to life that determine how things unfold. So if you're someone like me, I have an easy time imagining that, being in like a perfect home is easy. I've always had that since I was young. Whereas, like, if I was working with one of my clients that has difficulty like manifesting a house, always getting in trouble in their home, like their neighbors are terrible and that type of stuff, it's literally because of what they believe to be true about them. And for me, that's how this all manifested. When we moved here, we found a place that we thought we wanted to buy, and it was like on escrow, and there was all these obstacles, and we tried to like circumvent them and all this stuff, and it was a hard no. But what we found a place that was way better, and way better than I could have even imagined. And that's how we got here. And now we're in a place where it's like, okay, we worked on the farming skills, and we have a better idea of our community and things like that. Now we're ready to like go to a new place and have our own property and do what we want to do on the property. And that's going to be its own trajectory, or its own bridge of incident, if you will.
Dude, that's really cool. I love that continual growth mindset that you have, right? That everything's evolving. That's so cool to me.
Mhm.
How did your wife respond when you walked up to her and you said, "Hey, we're moving to Hawaii. I just bought tickets. We're moving in 6 weeks."
Her first response was awesome. The subsequent days, not so much.
Once the reality set in.
Yeah, once they're it's like, wait a minute, this is happening. So, my wife isn't so much into, I mean, she's learning, and by proximity, but like spirituality, manifestation, mindset, growth mindset, all that stuff is like that. She's slow going about that type of stuff, and so she didn't understand it. My whole life has been like leaps of faith, quantum leaps, and things like that. So to me, it wasn't an unusual thing. For her, it was. She's like, I have my job. I've been here for 10 years, and if I can stay here for another 10 years, we're good. That's the type of mindset
Yeah,
she has.
that's
She's
cool.
changing it, but yeah.
That's cool. And then no discredit to her either. I'm sure she is an absolutely
Oh,
amazing
no.
person. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I love that you talk about like the leaps in faith and the quantum leaps and stuff. And I think that actually segues perfectly into my first question. So, Jerry, I want you to take us back to a young Jerry. When were some of the first
Mm.
times that you noticed you were struggling with your mental health?
Oh my. Well, when I noticed that I was, or just in hindsight.
Yeah, let's do the hindsight.
Okay, so I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I constantly worried what other people thought about me. It was just the only reason why I did anything I did in middle school and high school and stuff like that was just to get people to like me, and I did a good job of it, but it was coming from a just complete lack mentality, and I think okay. Here's a direct answer to the question. I think it really hit me about poor mental health when I was around 25, actually,
Okay.
when it was the only time that I've ever attempted suicide, actually, and that was just I was having a hard time. I was on the verge of leaving my career in radio, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I had essentially like left the church as well, and and again, the people pleasing was on a ultimate high. It's just like, I just wanted other people to be happy. Which I still do, but it was like it was at the, what do you call it, at the expense of my own well-being. And and yeah, so right around when I was 25, and thank God one of my friends was willing to hear and understand where I was coming from, and I ended up going to a therapist and all that good stuff, and it worked out for the most part. And but it wasn't until, so that would have been like the first time I that occurred with me, when I was like, oh wait, that my mind wasn't all right, if you will. I didn't actually start working on it really truly until my days in New York, about 2014. So when I was around 33 or something like that. So around almost 10 years later is when I really started realizing that there was a lot more to me than these negative stories that I was telling myself.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good to hear. And thank you for being willing to share that vulnerable experience when you were 25,
Mm,
man. As someone who has also struggled with suicidal ideation and gone, kind of those extra steps, I can definitely appreciate how not only hard it is to kind of talk about that stuff at times, but how raw and vulnerable it is. So thank you. Thank you for being
no,
willing to share that, man. That's yeah. So, okay. So 10 years go past from that moment and you start working
mhm,
on your mental health. Yeah. Will you share with us, and again, I think this is perfectly leans into my second question, which is the hero's journey. So
mm.
for those just listening, the hero or the heroine's journey is essentially an extreme moment or a pivotal trial that someone has to go through that ultimately makes them better. So Jerry, will you please describe to us a hero's journey?
Yeah. So again, it was 2013. I was I was a producer and writer doing a lot of comedy and stuff like that in New York City. And part of that, at least in my mind, part of the doing business was partying and going to events and networking and rubbing elbows and doing all that type of stuff. And I don't know if you've ever been to New York City and lived in New York City, but it can be a lot of fun. And my way of having fun was drinking and doing a lot of party drugs and things like that that definitely weren't good for my mind. Well, it was a bad problem. It was a bad problem. A lot of my money was going to, my nightlife, if you will, and I ended up spending my rent money, me and my roommate's rent money. I was in charge of paying the rent, and I went months without paying rent. And it came to, like, I think it was around December of that year, 2013, when I was like laying in bed next to my girlfriend, and it's just this epiphany just hits me in the face of, Jerry, if you keep going down this route and lying and people pleasing and doing all this stuff, you'll probably be fine. That's literally what my mind said. It was like, you'll probably be fine. You'll get away with it, but you'll be miserable. It was so clear to me. But if you tell the truth, if you're vulnerable, if you tell the truth, you tell your roommates what's going on, all this type of stuff, it's going to be super painful, but in the long run, it's going to be such a huge benefit. And I'm laying there in bed, I'm having this inner dialogue, and I was like, all right, well, then I'm just going to choose the one that's going to be most beneficial. And so I literally sit up and I tell my girlfriend what I literally had been going on in my mind, and she freaks out. And I was like, oh God, and then I
Instant
told my
pain.
roommates. Instant pain, instant pain. But then the next day I told my roommates, and like, to my shock, they understood and supported me. And I promised them that I was going to do everything I could to make it right, which I did,
Good on
which was
you.
a lot of heavy pain, but I did. And yeah, I mean, like, I ended up losing a friendship because of it with one of my roommates, but for the most part, I made right. And but it was the making right that happened in the early part of 2014 that is really part of this hero's journey, where I learned a lot about myself and like what was possible for me. But cut to May of 2014, when I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I'm losing my we're on the verge of losing our apartment because I'm not necessarily able to make it right with our landlord. And I ended up finding this lecture by a guy named Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was teaching about the Tao Te Ching and this guy named Neville Goddard. And he talked about the idea that imagination creates reality. And I was, and it just, it just changed my life. The next day, I end up going to Barnes and Nobles. I buy the Tao Te Ching. Basically, spirituality came back into my life. From there, it's basically been a 10-year journey of just truly understanding who I am, and not on the superficial I'm Jerry level, but like the actual essence and awareness of my own being, how to harness the very power and wisdom that created us all. And then I learned all this from this with the Tao Te Ching and Neville Goddard's teaching, which was that imagination creates reality. And I pretty much have dedicated my life to understanding these principles, and not only understanding it to help me in my life, but to bless those that are around me. And it's been an amazing journey since. When it comes to mental health and all that stuff, I'm like, this is it. Like, if someone really wants to understand how to really clearly understand who they are, they should truly try to understand awareness, like pure awareness. So yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. No, that is so amazing. There's so much that I know I could ask you here with this story, this hero's journey that you took us through. And I'm really curious to know, you have this conversation with the girlfriend, you promised to make it right. What did you do, and kind of what were some of the struggles that you had to go through to make it right?
Well, being honest, first off, just telling everybody that I affected what was going on, which, looking back, was surprisingly easy. Being honest is easy. It's scary, like, stepping up to being honest, but once you're honest, let the chips fall as they may. Another hard part was just dealing with the law. Like, I was having to deal with with the legal system, going back and forth with the landlords. I didn't hire a lawyer. I literally had to like represent myself and all that type of stuff. Dealing with the loss of my apartment, loss of friendships. As far as I'm concerned, it's such a long time ago. It's like it's really hard for me to even really remember. But because when I think about the grand scheme of things, it was such a short period of time. But in the midst of it, it was just, man, it was.
And I
I
can
didn't. I did not think I would even. The idea that I'm even living the life I'm living now was absolutely unheard. It was not even a thing for me.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And I know you mentioned being a people pleaser. I can imagine like going from a
Mm,
people pleaser to a reality where you couldn't be, right? You had to
mhm.
drop hard knowledge with your roommates and your girlfriend at the time. You were dealing with attorneys, like
Colleagues, yeah,
colleagues.
colleagues as well. Like, because my roommates were all in the comedy world as well, so it's like this idea that I had painted of myself as this like really cool, nice guy, and all this stuff was all shattered. When it's like, yeah, Jerry, you can't handle your finances. You have a drug problem, and yeah, and then it's like also you're in an industry that's very vanity based. So it was heavy. It was heavy. Hmm.
Yeah, dude, I can imagine, man. And you start to and you find the law, of assumption manifestation with Neville Goddard. Am I saying his name right? Neville Goddard?
Yep. Hmm.
So you go and you buy his book and your life changes for the better. Give us kind of what happened, like, or actually, let's bring up the next question, the coping skills question. So you get
Mm,
to this point. So what coping skills, right, did you develop and how they evolved over time is the official question. But you read this book and you start developing some basic habits to change
mhm.
yourself. Let's hear. I would love to hear some more about that.
The interesting thing about coping is one of the things I've learned is I don't think of it as coping, because to cope is to hold on to the state of consciousness that you don't actually want to be in anymore. I can see how people could use it as a coping thing, but I don't really teach people to cope with anything. I teach people to become aware of what they've created, and in becoming aware of what you've created, you have a better idea of what it is that you actually want. So when so back then, I would do a lot of I am meditations, just I am, and just being still and recognizing that I'm not my story. I'm not my circumstances. I'm not my feelings. I'm not my emotions. I'm the one who's aware of those things. And all those things are actually pointing me towards that which I actually desire, which is peace, which is always what I'm looking for, peace. So peace, happiness, respect, understanding. These are all things that I used to go externally to get, but I could actually learn to give it to myself and thusly then give it to others.
That's so cool.
And so
How
that's how I would quote unquote code.
I love that. And how long did it take you to go from looking for external validation to being able to give yourself that good internal validation?
Well, I'm always learning new things and trying new things. I think that it when I first discovered Neville, which I'll say is probably May of 2014, and by Neville I mean his teachings. Yeah, so probably spring of 2015. That time span was me learning, understanding. So in that year, into 2014, 2015, Neville would say in one of his lectures, he said, I don't care what got you here. I care about what you want. And that just kind of just shifted the way I looked at things. It's like I could continue to share all these stories with myself or others, or I can decide right now that I already am the person I want to be. The very fact that I have the desire implies that it's mine. And when I started really understanding that and practicing that, I mean, things just moved. Things started changing for me for the better. And so when I ended up having a huge spiritual awakening. When would that have been? Probably around January of 2015, when I really started recognizing that there's way more to my life and the life of others than this material world. And when that really started landing for me, I really, like I already said, I was already studying, like, spiritual texts and stuff like that, but I got back into scripture again, started understanding that there's a lot more going on than this guy named Jerry. And yeah, that's when things changed. But really, on the material realm, things really just started shifting for me. My friendships changed. I ended up leaving New York City. At the time, I didn't know why I was going through all that, but in hindsight, I was like, oh, it's because you were changing. And yeah, man, I mean, just it's a whirlwind when I think of those days, because it was just like one thing led to another. I was just manifesting left and right. Found myself just being that guy who, like, instead of me doing the people pleasing thing, it was very easy for me to just be with anybody and just be myself. In that, I was able to really help a lot of people. And, so it's just like that thing I've been chasing my whole life, I didn't realize was actually within me, you know?
I love that, dude. And I want to ask a question here, and I think this is going to really change the lives of people. So when I've ever heard of manifestation, imagination, whatever it is, right? Typically it's someone's like, I want the new Cybertruck. So I'm going to put it
Uh-huh.
up on a vision board and I'm going to manifest,
Mm,
manifest, manifest until I have that Cybertruck. And what I'm hearing you say is that I started manifesting the person I wanted to become, and things just started naturally changing. Why do you think the manifestation that you do causes so much
mm.
beautiful change?
That's a good question. Well, I've come to understand that there's one cause to the phenomena of life. And that cause, again, is I am. What you say I am is what you get. And honestly, if you want to manifest a Cybertruck, I'm like, go for it. If you can understand this first principle, if you can truly understand, like, your relationship to God, that the extreme of who you say you are is the lowest point for God. At that fulcrum, at that meeting point, is where manifestation happens. Nothing on the physical world, in the material world, happens without it being first imagined. So in my mind, if someone says that, okay, they want to manifest a Cybertruck, I'm like, great, let's manifest a Cybertruck. Why? Because they get to understand who they are. Because they'll get the Cybertruck and realize that they didn't really want that. It's not really what makes them happy, and thusly they know where their happiness is. Or they know that who they are and they get this truck, and it's actually a benefit to others, because when you buy a truck or a Cybertruck or whatever, a house, there's somebody who's selling it, and so it's actually a blessing to them. So I don't actually have a problem with people wanting material things. It's understanding the fundamental principles underlying all of it that connects us all to one another, and recognizing that, the desires that you have on your heart are actually bigger than you in the first place. Why? Because, again, there's a spiritual cause to all physical things. So when you go after that which that your desire has, it's actually raising you up to a higher level of consciousness. I understand why people ask the question that you just asked. Well, what about the material things, this and the other? It's like, well, why do you have the job that you have? Why do you want, you have kids, you want nice things, you want quality things, you want things that not only bless you, but bless those that are in your life, you know? So if someone wants a Cybertruck, I'm like, great. Elon Musk needs some more money so he can go to Mars. Like, to me, it's a good thing when
Right.
people want things, right? But unlike the law of attraction or vision boards and this and the other, I feel like those type of teachings still make you focus on external reality, as
Mhm.
opposed to what truly causes, blessings, which is your relationship with your creator. And if I don't know if y'all follow scripture at all on your channel, but what did he say? He said, it's like, I am that I am. And so, and he said that we were created in his image. Well, if his name is I am, and that's who I call myself all the time, it would behoove me to recognize who it is that I say that I am. And for me, and this is what I work on with my clients, it's like I constantly try to remind my clients that it's not just enough to bless yourself. It's about blessing yourselves and those that are in your life.
Right.
So it's about, so I teach, good. You want the Cybertruck? Great. Why do you want the Cybertruck? Oh, well, it's that I want the status. Okay. What is the status going to provide for you? I'll get the respect that I'm looking for. It's like, okay, cool. That's actually what you want. You actually want respect. Okay, cool. Now start imagining that you're respected. Who would you have to be? What would it feel like if you were respectful and respected? What would it feel like to drive that Cybertruck with respect? Are you going to be the type of like, I'm just going to run over people with my bulletproof car, or you know, or and I guess that's fine if that's part of your journey, so be it. But like, I'm not here to judge people's like desires because I just from my own experience in life, every desire, good, bad, or indifferent, is what I needed in order to take the next step on my bridge, on my hero's journey.
I love that.
So without those issues that I had back then, I wouldn't be doing this. Without a doubt, I wouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? But then, if I get in a conversation with a theologian, they'd be like, "Well, Jerry, you're a bad person because you did all that stuff and blah blah blah." And it's like, but I'm a completely different person now, you
Right.
know? So
It's what the atonement's for, essentially.
correct. Correct.
Yeah. And I know you
And that's
mentioned following the scripture. We do. And
mhm,
I fully believe in God and Jesus and everything you're talking about. So I think that's awesome. And
yeah.
there's something you pointed out too that you talked about your most extreme
Hmm.
being that you can be is the bottom threshold of God. I'm a firm believer. And I'll tell you this, but I'm trying to write a book right now called The Power of Extreme. And it talks
Mm,
about how being an extreme person actually helps you become closer to God. And the ideology that I use is that, Jesus Christ was born to a virgin, was teaching in the temples at 12, ended up recruiting 12 guys to also become homeless and travel the coast with them, to go into a
mhm,
temple with, corn stalk and to toss up the vendors out, to fast in the wilderness for 40 days, to die, to be crucified, and then to come back to life. Like, you can't tell me that's not extreme. And if we're supposed to be
mhm,
like him, does that not mean we're also supposed to do extreme things?
mhm.
Right?
I wholeheartedly agree with. There's no reason to not go for it. Go for the stars because by you not imagining better than the best you are actually putting a hindrance on human capabilities and possibilities. Like you don't need to be a Christian to understand what we're talking about here. It's just the very fact that you're here, you going for the stars is why we're here. It's for that experience. Because think about it. If you don't go for it, think of all the people you let down because just for the very fact that you didn't go for it.
All the lives that you could have blessed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
even if you go for the extreme, you go for the stars, and you don't. I love this saying, but if you go for the stars and you miss, at least you'll make it to the moon. But if you're only shooting for the moon, you'll only get you'll only get to the stratosphere, and stratosphere is not a very good survival place. Neither is the moon. I don't think stars are also a very good survival place, but but you get my saying.
Yeah, I absolutely get it, man. And one question I had that keeps coming to mind, and I really want to ask you, those
Hmm.
people who work on manifesting material
Hmm.
items versus those people that are manifesting the emotions they want, right? Like respect,
Hmm.
love,
Hmm.
peace. What kind of differences do you notice in these people?
Nothing. I don't think there's any difference. I I think that again, bringing it back to first principles, there's only one cause. So a person who's desiring respect or understanding or this any other, and a person who wants a Cybertruck, or a new house or whatever, ultimately what they're truly asking for is to recognize that thing within themselves. So, and again, I'm not like most manifestation coaches that will say, "Oh, it's December, let's do our vision board and do all this type of stuff," because I've never done that. I don't operate that way. But I know that the person who's going for the material things will eventually realize that, oh, wait, this is way deeper than the material things. How do I know that? When I first started this thing, I was trying to manifest material things. And I realized very quickly that it was like, oh, this is way deeper than material stuff. But, here I am 10 years later. I live on the largest Mamaki tea farm. I didn't know that this is where I was going to go. All I wanted to do was be home. I wanted to be in a place that I could call home, that like I felt loved. I feel like I could be loving and all that stuff. The people who come to me who want to, most people who come to somebody like me, they want to change in health, they want to change in their relationships, they want to change in their finances, right? Again, those are all great things, but what's really going on behind it? That's where we work on. What are your assumptions? What are you assuming to be true, about you? What would you like to assume to be true about you? To answer this question, I have a client. When we first started working together, he wanted he was on his spiritual journey. But when we first started working together, he was just like, I just want to make this much money in my business, so on and so forth. And this guy's like already, made multiple millions, but grind set, grind, hustle. If I get this property, it means this, and then if I do this thing, it means that. And I was like, oh, that's cool, and everything. But how's your relationship with your daughter? Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, she's with this guy that I don't really like or whatever, but I mean, she's just living her life. I was like, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that relationship. And we really got down to like what's going on within him. He ended up learning revision, which is forgiveness, and his relationship with his daughter like just blossomed. His business ended up doing better. We barely ever talked about business. His business just became easier for him. He was constantly laughing about how contracts would be coming in and this, that, and the other. And it was just like because he changed who he is. Like I said in the early part of this, when you change who you say that you are, everything shifts. But a lot of times people focus on X thing, like big thing, Cybertruck. And I'll be like, you think you want the Cybertruck. In fact, I think you'll get the Cybertruck. Let's not worry about the Cybertruck. Let's worry about this thing. And then when we identify this little thing that he didn't think was that big of a deal, all of a sudden it's like pulling a little thing out of a dam and everything just rushes out. Now, we've been working together for a while because I don't know why he keeps hiring me. And and because I mean I taught him everything I could teach him. He just likes my consulting, I guess. And we were talking back in December about again how stressed he is with work and all this stuff. And he's like, Jerry, I can't do it anymore. And I was just like, I know. Just because you keep having that crazy mindset of yours. And he took some hiatus from it, dropped everything, and just literally started working on just relaxing and actually picking up hobbies and like taking time for himself, taking time for his family, all that type of stuff. In that time, he wanted to change his like health habits and he started juicing. And he gets on a call. This is a couple of months ago. He gets on this call and he's just like smiling from ear to ear. And he's like, Jerry, my God, dude. Like, and he just goes in on this juice thing. And I asked him, it's like, are you doing that whole grind set thing with this again? And he's like, dude, this is completely different. Like the ideas that are coming to me, people are coming to me to like work on these things. I I I have a whole business plan that just came out of nowhere. And I was like, good. Like that's what I like to hear. And now he's doing that thing and he's again, it's and it happens like that once you change it, everything changes. You don't need a vision board. Like it doesn't, it's not needed.
That's amazing.
I know I
And
sound like I'm all over the place, but I don't know.
no, it's, I'm a firm believer in something called rigorous acceptance, or radical acceptance is the term that's more widely known. Everything is as it should be because it is, right? This conversation was everything it needed to be because it was,
Mm,
right? So, no, I appreciate it. Jerry, thank you so much. Thank you for all of the gold. And I've got a few more questions for you. So,
yeah.
obviously, you've gotten to this place where you are thriving, and it is so apparent and so obvious through the conversation that we've had. Looking back at everything that you've had to go through, what do you appreciate about the journey you've been on?
Mm. I appreciate the whole story. I appreciate the whole experience. It's funny, you look back on your life and you get interviewed like this, and it's like, that was all perfect. Even the things that didn't seem like they were perfect, they were all perfect. And so it makes me really appreciate God. And two, just now, it really truly, because I didn't appreciate the now moments back in the day, but now I really appreciate the now because I'm like, it's way easier when you just appreciate now. It's way easier. Like when the difficult thing, you talk about coping, when a difficult thing is, coming around and, you're going through some sort of storm, to just appreciate just being here to experience whatever you're experiencing, knowing full well that everything you've experienced in the past got you to where you are now, that all I needed to do then was just appreciate each moment, and it would probably have been easier and probably would have unfolded a little smoother. How can't I appreciate right now?
I love that.
And the more you appreciate now, I know it's like Eckhart Tolle, woo woo, blah, blah, blah. It's just true. The more you appreciate now, it changes all the past and it changes all the future. Because as one of my mentors says, it's like, didn't he say, what he would always say this to me? It's like, choose ye this day. Isn't it always this day? It's never not been this day. So choose it. Like choose it. Choose now. It's always now,
I
you
love
know?
that. I love that. Thank you so much. And it is so true. It kind of, you remind me of a quote from Kung Fu Panda. And I know since we have
Mm.
kids, you'll appreciate Master Oogway says, right?
Never seen it. Never seen it.
You ever seen Kung Fu Panda? Oh man. Okay. Well, okay.
I,
So here's the
I
plan.
need to, apparently.
Well, I'll fly out to Hawaii and we'll watch Kung Fu Panda together. We'll get the kids together. But no. So one of the leaders in the movie, he says the future is anxiety, the past is
Mm,
depression. Right now is a
mm,
gift because it's called the present.
mm.
Right. So it's all about just appreciating and acknowledging that right now is a gift. Right.
Yes.
So I love that. So, Jerry, my last question for you, brother.
Mhm.
For those just getting into the realm of mental health, what specific advice do you have for them?
Yeah, so I would say just learn to be still. Just if you can learn to just be still, despite all the story, despite all the diagnoses, despite all of the proof that you're not worthy, that you're not enough, that you'll never get out of this, that you're sick, all of that. If you can just learn to be still and recognize that you aren't any of those stories with compassion, just awareness. Okay, this is what I believe to be true about me. I'm just going to allow this to be true and love. I'm going to love this aspect of myself. It truly will dissipate like clouds in the sky if you can learn to be still.
I love that. And that is so true. That is so true. Jerry, I can't even begin to describe how thankful and grateful I am that you came on my show today. You are truly a rock star, dude. And you blessed everyone listening, including myself, with so
Mm,
much truth. And I felt so much love from you and so much caring and wisdom and guidance, dude. You're a rock star. For those people who are interested at this point, who are essentially taking their wallets out and throwing it at the screen, how can these people how can these people find you?
yeah. You could the best way to find me in any of my content is actually on Instagram. I just started a YouTube channel last week because everybody says that I need to start one. So I started one, I started one last week, but the best way to really get in contact with me that I love using is Instagram. They can find me at human.imagination, and there's plenty of my content out there, writings, all that stuff. You can DM me any of your questions. And if you want to work with me, there is a link tree in there that you can click on, or just DM me and I can get you the pertinent information. Also, my business partner told me to reminded me to tell people this, that we're having our first retreat coming up this May, the end of May of 2024, just in case y'all are listening to this later in the future. And yeah, we're going to do this creative visionary project for those folks that they have ideas that they would love to bring to light, but like don't have the support network around them to just ideate and like cultivate those ideas. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, hit me up.
Yeah, dude. And if there's any links or any information that you can give me too, I can definitely plug that in the comment or the description section of the show so people can go explore that more.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today to listen to Jerry share some awesome skills and tools with you. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did with this conversation. And if you haven't already, I invite you to share this with someone that I know you've been thinking of as we've been listening to Jerry share all of this awesome stuff. If you want to come on my show, just understand that no story is too big and no name is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all, just contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. And if you want to know what I do on a day-to-day basis, please visit www.thewellnesscenter.life, where full body red light therapy rejuvenates and changes every cell in your body, one session at a time. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.